Chapter 1. The Arrival. Ext, Lagos. Afternoon, November 2025. The afternoon sun hangs over Lagos. Commercial buses fight through traffic. Street hawkers weave between vehicles. The city is noisy, busy, alive. Voice over. Manager. Every story has a beginning. Some begin with joy. Some begin with hope. Others begin so quietly that nobody notices history unfolding before their eyes. Fade to Ixtay, Emerald Heights, serviced apartments. Cars enter the compound. Guests pull suitcases. Security officers salute familiar residents. The apartment looks peaceful. Another ordinary business day. INT. Reception. Soft gospel music plays. Grace answers the telephone. A housekeeper pushes fresh linen toward the elevator. A guest checks out. Another signs a registration form. The manager walks through the lobby greeting staff. Everything runs smoothly. INT. Reception. The automatic glass doors slide open. Everyone looks up. A young man in his 20s walks inside carrying 2 traveling bags. Beside him, an elderly woman. She walks slowly. Every step is painful. One hand grips a walking stick. The other rests on the young man's arm. The entire reception quietly watches. Grace immediately smiles. Grace. Good afternoon, sir. The young man smiles politely. Stanley. Good afternoon. Grace. How may I help you? Stanley. I'd like a studio apartment with a kitchen. Grace begins typing. Scene 6. Mama struggles to remain standing. The manager notices. He immediately walks over. Manager. Mama? Please, have a seat. He gently pulls out a chair. Mama smiles. Mama. Thank you, my son. Scene 7. Registration begins. Grace requests identification. Stanley hands over his ID. She enters his details. Phone number. Address. Emergency contact. Payment is made. Printer hums. Receipt prints. Keys are handed over. Everything appears ordinary. Scene 8. The manager studies Mama quietly. She looks exhausted. Her eyes reveal months of pain. She smiles anyway. The manager thinks, every mother hopes her child will stand beside her when old age finally arrives. He watches Stanley supporting her. He smiles. Manager, VO. She is fortunate. Scene 9. Housekeeper opens room 103. Curtains drawn. Fresh bed. Small kitchen. Mama slowly enters. She looks around. Mama, it's beautiful. Stanley smiles. As long as you're comfortable. Scene 10. Stanley carefully unpacks. Medicines. Clothes. Family photographs. He arranges everything. He pours water into a glass. He looks like the perfect son. Evening. Stanley helps Mama eat. He reminds her to take medication. The manager watches from outside. He quietly tells Grace. Manager. He's a good young man. Grace smiles. I hope Mama gets better. Montage. Monday. Stanley leaves. Returns. Tuesday. Hospital visits. Wednesday. Mama sits outside. Staff greet her. She smiles. Everything appears normal. 3 days later, Stanley walks back to reception. Stanley. Manager. I need another room. The manager looks surprised. Manager. Another room? Stanley. Yes. My aunt is traveling from the east. She'll stay only 3 days. She'll help look after my mother. The explanation makes perfect sense. Housekeeper prepares another apartment. Stanley thanks everyone. Moves into room 207. Nobody questions him. Montage. 3 days. 5 days. 1 week. Nobody sees any aunt. Housekeepers notice men's shoes. Men's clothes. Stanley sleeping there. Still, nobody says anything. Stanley begins spending less time with Mama. Morning. He leaves. Night. returns to room 207. Friends visit. Music. Laughter. Meanwhile, Mama sits alone beside the window, watching the entrance, waiting. Montage. Calendar pages fall. November, December, January, 1, 10, 30, 60, 90, 121 days. Stanley lives comfortably in another apartment. Mama remains alone. The manager watches. Something doesn't feel right. Then, one afternoon, Stanley sends his first message about delaying payment. The first excuse. The first lie. It won't be the last. Fade out. End of chapter 1. There is a difference between being alone and being abandoned. During the first few weeks after Stanley and his mother checked into the serviced apartment, no one suspected anything was wrong. After all, people have busy lives. Business trips happen. Meetings run late. Emergencies arise. We assumed Stanley was simply trying to make a living while caring for his sick mother. Whenever he left the building, we believed he would soon return. Whenever he said he would only be gone for a few hours, we believed him. Whenever his mother smiled and assured us that her son was doing his best, we believed her too. We wanted to believe. Looking back now, I sometimes wonder if hope can blind people as much as deception does. Every morning, our receptionist arrived before sunrise. Housekeepers cleaned rooms. Maintenance workers inspected the generators. Security officers changed shifts. Guests came downstairs for breakfast before rushing off to meetings across Lagos. Life inside the apartment moved with its usual rhythm. Only one room seemed frozen in time. Mama's room. Every morning she sat quietly on the edge of her bed. Sometimes she stared through the window for hours. Sometimes she held her walking stick and slowly struggled toward the small chair near the entrance. Most days, she simply waited. She waited for footsteps. She waited for the sound of her son's voice. She waited for someone to open the door and say, "Mama, I'm back." But the voice she longed to hear became less frequent with every passing week. 3 days became 7. 7 became 14. 14 became 30. Then 60. Then 90. Until no one could remember the last time Stanley had spent an entire day caring for his mother. His explanation never changed. "I'm trying to make money. I'm working. I'm sorting things out." His mother defended him every single time. "Leave him," she would tell us. "He has a lot on his mind." Those words broke my heart. Even in neglect, she still protected him. That is the kind of love only a mother can give. A love that refuses to keep score. A love that continues defending a child long after everyone else has stopped believing. As her condition worsened, something else became obvious. Mama could no longer care for herself. The stroke had taken away much of her independence. Simple things had become impossible. Standing, bathing, changing clothes, walking to the bathroom, even eating sometimes required assistance. If no one helped her quickly enough, she would wet herself, not because she wanted to, because her body no longer obeyed her. The first time it happened, she cried, not because of the discomfort, but because of the shame. "I didn't mean to," she whispered over and over. Those words stayed with me. "I didn't mean to," as though she believed she had done something wrong, as though illness were a crime. Among our staff was a young receptionist whom I will call Grace. Grace was kind by nature. She could never ignore someone in pain. Whenever her duties allowed, she quietly visited Mama. She helped her stand. She brought her drinking water. She warmed her food. Sometimes she cleaned the room. Other times she simply sat beside her and talked. Those conversations became the brightest part of Mama's day. Whenever Grace entered the room, Mama smiled like a grandmother welcoming her own granddaughter. She asked about her family. She prayed for her. Sometimes they laughed together. Watching them, it was easy to forget they had met only weeks earlier. Love has a strange way of creating family where blood sometimes fails. As the weeks passed, Grace spent more and more time helping Mama. Eventually, It began affecting her work. Guests waited longer at reception. Phone calls went unanswered. Management noticed. One afternoon, I had to call Grace into my office. It remains one of the hardest conversations I have ever had. "Grace," I said softly, "you have such a good heart, and nobody doubts your compassion. But you're employed as a receptionist, not a caregiver." She lowered her eyes. "I know, sir." "If you spend all day looking after Mama, who will attend to the guests?" Tears filled her eyes. "But who will look after her?" I had no answer, because the truthful answer was painful. Nobody, not unless her son did. With great difficulty, we instructed Grace to stop providing regular care. It was not because we lacked compassion. It was because we were running a serviced apartment, not a hospital or a nursing home. Even so, none of us could simply ignore Mama. Whenever we had a free moment, someone checked on her. Someone brought food. Someone made sure she had water. Someone asked if she was comfortable. The staff became her quiet support system, not because it was in their job description, because they were human. Meanwhile, Stanley seemed to be living a completely different life. Guests often saw him leaving the apartment looking smartly dressed. Sometimes he returned very late. Sometimes he disappeared for 2 or 3 days. Sometimes different visitors arrived asking for him. Whenever we asked about his mother, he always gave the same reassuring smile. "I'm handling everything." But he wasn't, not even close. He had moved farther and farther away from the woman who needed him most. Ironically, the distance between their rooms was less than a minute's walk. Yet, emotionally, they had never been farther apart. By the end of December, everyone working in the building knew Mama. Some called her Mama. Some simply greeted her every morning. Even guests who stayed for only a few days noticed the elderly woman sitting quietly outside her room. Many offered greetings. Some offered fruit. Others prayed with her. Strangers showed kindness without expecting anything in return. Yet the one kindness she wanted most could only come from one person, her son. Every evening, she looked toward the entrance. Every evening, disappointment settled across her face. Still, she never spoke badly about him. Not once. Even when he failed her repeatedly, she refused to stop believing. That is what made her suffering so painful to witness. Because while everyone else was beginning to lose hope, she still believed her son would come through. She believed tomorrow would be different. She believed he would keep his promises. She believed he loved her. None of us had the courage to tell her that love without responsibility eventually becomes another form of abandonment. As January approached, another storm was gathering. The unpaid accommodation bills had started to pile up. At first, they looked like ordinary delays. Within weeks, they would become the beginning of a nightmare that would change all of our lives forever. And with every unpaid bill, Stanley told another lie. The easiest lie to believe is the one wrapped in hope. By January 2026, Mama had become part of the apartment family. She was no longer simply another guest. Every member of staff knew her. The security officers greeted her every morning before opening the gate. The housekeepers stopped by her room whenever they had a few free minutes. The maintenance staff often asked if she needed anything while they worked on nearby apartments. Even guests who stayed only a few days would pause to greet the elderly woman sitting quietly outside her door. Nobody saw her as a burden. Nobody treated her with disrespect. Strangers gave her something she desperately needed: kindness. Ironically, the kindness she received from strangers was becoming more consistent than the care she received from her own son. Stanley still occupied the second apartment. The room he had claimed was for an aunt who would stay only 3 days had now become his home. 121 days were slowly approaching. Every evening, his mother's door remained half open, not because she expected visitors, because she hoped her son would walk through it. Hope became part of her daily routine. Every sound in the corridor made her look up. Every knock on another guest's door made her smile for a brief second. Then the footsteps would continue past her room. Silence would return. she would lower her head again. Watching her broke something inside all of us. Around this time, another problem quietly began growing: money. When Stanley checked into the apartment, he had paid for his mother's studio apartment. Later, he rented the second apartment. At first, payments came as expected. Then they became late. At first, nobody panicked. Late payments happen. Guests sometimes experience delays. It was normal. But this delay was different. The excuses began almost immediately. "Bro, don't worry. I'll send it tomorrow. I'm expecting money. I've already arranged everything. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow." That single word became the foundation of every conversation. Yet tomorrow never came. By 10 January 2026, the outstanding balance had reached $1,380,000. I sent him a message reminding him of the amount. He replied 3 days later. His message sounded sincere. "I will definitely sort you this week. I'm having some problems moving cash into my account, but I will rectify it soon." Reading those words, I believed him, maybe because I wanted to, maybe because I couldn't imagine someone deliberately lying while his sick mother depended on our patience. A few days later, he sent another message. He promised to transfer $250,000 immediately. The alert finally came. But instead of $250,000, only $200,000 arrived. He apologized. He explained that he would complete the balance the following week. Again, we believed him. The following week arrived. Nothing. Another promise disappeared. While we struggled with unpaid bills, Mama was struggling with something much more painful. Her health was getting worse. Some mornings she could barely stand. Other days she remained in bed until someone helped her. Her stroke had taken away the independence she once enjoyed. She could no longer trust her own body. There were days she wet herself before reaching the bathroom. The embarrassment on her face was heartbreaking. "I didn't want this," she whispered one afternoon as tears rolled down her cheeks. Those words stayed with me long after I left her room. Illness had already stolen her strength. She should not have had to lose her dignity as well. The smell began to spread more often. Not because Mama lacked cleanliness, because she lacked help. Without someone to change her clothes immediately, without someone to clean her room quickly, the odor lingered. Guests noticed. Some complained. Others simply looked at us with sympathy. As manager, I found myself trapped between two responsibilities. One was to protect the business. The other was to protect a helpless woman. Every decision felt impossible. Stanley seemed to notice very little. Whenever I called him, he sounded relaxed. Sometimes he answered immediately, sometimes hours later, but his response never changed. "Bro, don't worry. I'll settle everything. I'm working on it. Just give me a little time." Those messages became so familiar that I could almost predict the next sentence before opening my phone. He always sounded confident, always respectful, always convincing. If words could pay debts, he would have owed nothing. In an effort to help his mother, Stanley hired a young woman named Mary. She was employed to cook, clean, and assist Mama while he was away. When Mary arrived, everyone felt relieved. Finally, someone would stay with Mama. Someone would help her bathe. Someone would prepare her meals. Someone would ensure she never remained alone for long. For a brief moment, hope returned. Mama smiled more often. She laughed during conversations. She looked less lonely. It felt as though things were finally changing. Then the salary stopped coming. Days became weeks. Mary waited patiently. Eventually, she realized she had been working without being paid. Isn't that sad enough? With tears in her eyes, she explained that she could no longer continue. She had bills of her own, a family depending on her. She apologized to Mama before leaving. Watching them say goodbye was heartbreaking. Mama held Mary's hand for a long time. Neither woman spoke. Sometimes silence carries more pain than words ever could. When Mary walked away, Mama was alone again. As January drew to a close, The apartment carried two growing burdens. One was financial, the other was emotional. The debt continued to rise. Mama continued to weaken, and Stanley continued making promises. Promises that sounded believable. Promises that gave us hope. Promises that disappeared as quickly as they were spoken. None of us realized that January was only the beginning. The lies were about to become bigger, the excuses more elaborate, the documents more convincing. And, before long, Stanley would build an entire world out of promises that never existed. The question was no longer whether he would pay. The question had become something far more frightening. How many more lies was he willing to tell before the truth finally caught up with him? Some people tell lies because they are afraid. Others tell lies because they have become comfortable living inside them. By February 2026, I had stopped asking myself one question: will Stanley pay? Instead, a different question occupied my mind every morning. What excuse will he give today? There was always another story, another promise, another explanation. No matter how unbelievable it sounded, he told it with absolute confidence. It was as though he had mastered the art of making people believe him. The strange thing was, most of us did, because every lie sounded reasonable until the day it collapsed. The outstanding debt continued to grow. Every sunrise added another day to the bill. Every sunset increased the pressure. This was no longer just about unpaid accommodation. Electricity had to be paid. Housekeepers expected salaries. Maintenance workers needed supplies. The business depended on guests paying their bills. Yet here we were, carrying a debt that grew heavier every single day. Still, we continued showing patience. Not because the business could afford it, because of Mama. Every decision led back to her. If we forced them out, where would she go? Who would carry her? Who would clean her? Who would feed her? Those questions haunted me every night. On 7 February 2026, after weeks of waiting, I finally sent Stanley another message. This time, I was honest. You're becoming too quiet about this debt. Every time I have to be the one to contact you. You never reach out first. You're putting me under pressure. His reply came almost immediately. My apologies, bro. I don't want this to become an issue between us. Just exercise a little patience with me. I will definitely clear everything. I stared at the screen for a long time. The words sounded genuine. Again, there was no anger, no argument, only another apology, another promise, another tomorrow. A few days later, I reminded him again. He replied confidently. Next week, I can guarantee you 1.4 million. I wanted to send the money first before sending this message. For the first time in weeks, hope returned. 1.4 million naira would solve a large part of the problem. I informed the business owner that Stanley had made a firm commitment. Let's give him one more chance, I said. Saturday came. No payment. Sunday arrived. Still nothing. Monday passed. When I contacted him again, another explanation appeared. Someone guaranteed me the money, but it didn't come through. Another promise had died. By now, Mama's condition had worsened. Without consistent care, she struggled through each day. Sometimes she could not change her clothes. Sometimes she sat quietly in the same position for hours. The smell inside the room became impossible to ignore. One afternoon, I stood outside her door holding a can of air freshener. I sprayed the corridor, then inside the room, then the hallway again. The fragrance lasted only a few minutes. The sadness remained. I realized something that day. You can hide an odor. You cannot hide neglect. Guests had begun asking uncomfortable questions. Does she have family? Why is nobody staying with her? Why is she always alone? I answered politely. But deep inside, I asked myself the same questions. The debt kept growing. So did Stanley's confidence. He no longer sounded worried. Every message ended with reassurance. Don't worry. Everything is under control. Trust me, I won't disappoint you. Those 4 sentences became the soundtrack of the next several months. One evening, I asked him a direct question. "Stanley, tell me honestly, is there any reason we should believe this money is really coming?" He smiled. Not the smile of someone cornered, the smile of someone completely certain of his own story. "Manager," he said calmly, "I'm not that kind of person. I wanted to believe him, because trusting people had always been easier for me than suspecting them. Looking back now, I realize something. Some people don't steal your money immediately. They steal your trust first. Once they have that, everything else becomes easier." While all this was happening, Mama continued defending her son. If anyone suggested he was neglecting her, she quickly interrupted. "No, my son is trying. He's under pressure. Even after days without seeing him," she defended him. "Even after sleeping alone," she defended him. "Even after crying herself to sleep," she defended him. I have often wondered if a mother's heart was created differently from everyone else's, because even when her own heart is breaking, she still protects the child who broke it. By the end of February, the debt had climbed into the millions. Every promise had failed. Every deadline had passed. Every excuse had been replaced by another. Then Stanley introduced a story that sounded too good to be true. He claimed a friend in the United States was about to send him a large amount of money. According to him, once the transfer arrived, every kobo would be paid immediately. He spoke with such confidence that, once again, I found myself believing. I had no idea that this would become the beginning of an even bigger deception. The lies were no longer ordinary. They were becoming carefully constructed, supported by stories, supported by documents, supported by confidence. The next chapter would reveal just how far one man was willing to go to keep a lie alive. And by the time the truth finally emerged, it would be almost too late. The most dangerous lies are the ones supported by evidence that never existed. March 2026 arrived with fresh hope. Not because anything had changed, but because Stanley made us believe that everything was finally about to change. For months, every promise had ended in disappointment. Every deadline had passed. Every assurance had disappeared into silence.